Chapter 41. Seeing that the mother and daughter did not speak, Walter flipped through his records. With the current income of the group, we can arrange at most about 300 people. If there are more people, it will put a huge burden on the group. 300? This number was a bit small. Thea planned to at least solve the work problems of more than half of the people, and the rest could be given a subsistence allowance and be slowly digested. Moira was also not very optimistic about this number. If there are too few positions, it will aggravate the situation. What if they are transferred to a branch in another place? The black uncle bowed his head and calculated. The number of people can't exceed 200 at most. If there are more, there will be conflicts with the local staff. Our group can't interfere too much with the staff adjustment of the branch. This was the interesting part of the United States. Many people thought that it was difficult for people to leave their homeland, but in fact, foreigners also had this problem. The United States also had a land of 9.6 million square kilometers. Was this number familiar? The place was big and the population was small. Many people lived in small towns all their lives. They were born and died here. The environment was very closed. No one went out and no one came in. In horror movies, a certain evil cult member would commit suicide, and no one would know about it for 20 years. It was only when the protagonists, a handsome man and a beautiful woman, wandered here that they discovered the final plot and so on. It was in this enclosed environment that the plot was created. The closed environment caused all the locals to exclude outsiders. In response to this situation, whether it was the Quinn Group or Wayne Enterprises, they tacitly agreed to the management of the local people in the branch office. Thea suddenly remembered the famous words of a great leader: "What do you think of building a high-speed railway that connects several cities?" The East-West Railway in the United States had been built for more than 100 years. Daily wear and tear, coupled with various crazy villains who loved to bomb the railway on the ground had long been unusable. On the one hand, it could reopen the steel smelting project of the Quinn Group. The remaining more than 1,000 people could not be solved, but more than half of them could be eliminated. At the same time, it could also increase the economic output of Star City, which would be of great help to Moira in next year's election. This is a good idea. Moira was completely considering it from her own perspective. She thought that she would just shout slogans. If they chose her, she would continue to invest. If they didn't choose her, she would not lose anything. Railway work was not a task that could be completed in a day or two, or even a year or two. The time would be extremely long, and the voters would not scold her for not building the railway in a week. Moreover, now that he had a program, he could pull it out and talk about it every time he gave a speech in the future. It would save him the trouble of racking his brains to come up with a speech. It wasn't difficult to implement. He knew so many people in the early stages of the investment, and each of them could contribute a little. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was a good idea. Although Walter didn't like the idea, he didn't object when he saw that the mother and daughter both thought it was a good idea. Anyway, since they were willing to pay, he couldn't be bothered to interfere. Thea urged her mother to send someone to sign Derek's agreement as soon as possible. The rest had nothing to do with her. Moira was aiming for the mayor's throne. Although she had yet to formally submit an application for the election, she had already established a huge campaign team. She had recruited a lot of elites from all walks of life. These people could contact the surrounding cities and the major companies' affairs to this group of people. With nothing to do, Thea began to live a life of idleness. She had watched the video of Catwoman and Batman 3 times. Batman's moves were all strong and heavy, which was not suitable for her. On the other hand, Catwoman's street fighting skills were very inspiring to her. She really admired her balance. She couldn't always wear flat shoes at all kinds of banquets in the future. How to wear high heels without affecting the fight was also a lesson she had to learn. She decided to go easy first and then go hard. She didn't dare to try the thin high heels, so she changed into a pair of thick high heels. Walking was not a problem, but she made a kicking action. Dong, Thea rubbed her head and got up. The designer of this pair of shoes should be dragged to target practice. And she couldn't stop for 5 minutes. Wearing this pair of shoes was equivalent to adding a debuff that reduced her attack speed by 50%. Why could Catwoman run and jump as if nothing had happened? The clown girl later seemed to be able to do it too. This was not scientific at all. She was going to ask someone who understood. The next day, in the elementary school class, she found Madame Shiva and asked her question. Why is Catwoman's balance so good? Catwoman? Humph, loser. Stand up straight and let me see. Madame Shiva didn't answer directly. Instead, she asked her to stand up straight and walked in a circle to examine her. Thea was a little nervous because not only did she walk in a circle, but she also patted and pinched her body from time to time. Just now, she touched the area below her neck and above her lower abdomen for a long time, and she almost screamed. Just as she was letting her imagination run wild, Shiva suddenly slapped her butt. Ouch! This time, Thea couldn't hold it in anymore. She looked at her with a red face. If you don't give me an explanation, I'll fight you to the death even if I can't beat you. Actually, your sense of balance isn't bad. It's just that your muscles are not used properly, or should I say, unscientific. The strength of your whole body isn't completely twisted into a rope. As she spoke, she patted Thea's butt again. For example, here. This is the source of the whole body's strength. The movement of the legs and the strength of the upper body all have to go through here. You don't seem to have systematically learned the technique of strength exertion before. Yes, I can't do that if you touch me randomly. It's true that in ancient times, it's reasonable for a male master to teach a male disciple and a female master to teach a female disciple. Madame Shiva continued to speak seriously, and Thea also became serious. Of course, it was best to ignore her blushing face. Back to the original question, how to exert strength like Catwoman, you just have to do this. As she spoke, she pointed at a few parts of her buttocks and legs. As long as you can use these few muscles flexibly, you can even fight on stilts, let alone high heels. But you can only fight for a short period of time. If you fight for a long time, it will cause damage to your calf muscles and Achilles tendon. Let me show you. Madame Shiva took off her coat as she spoke, and let Thea put her hand on her leg to feel the movement of her muscles. It's so cold. This was the first feeling Thea had when she touched her thigh. Maybe she was really Asian. Her skin was very delicate and smooth. Coupled with years of exercise, there was a rhythmic beat on her skin. This was a rare opportunity. She abandoned the distracting thoughts in her heart and concentrated on feeling this unique charm. Thea herself tried to do it a few times and found that it was difficult to say, but easy to do. Without guidance, she might not understand it in a lifetime. With guidance, it was a matter of a layer of window paper. However, she also understood that this kind of abnormal muscle movement consumed a lot of physical and mental energy. No wonder Catwoman's stamina was exhausted after fighting with her twice. At that time, she wondered why Catwoman's stamina was not as good as her, a half-otaku, even though she was like a big Western horse. So this was the problem. Chapter 42. Then the two began their daily teaching. Now Thea had entered the fourth stage of perceptual learning, which was the last stage that Ms. Shiva named Earth Listening. This stage was very vague. She needed to feel the movement track of the insects in the soil, which made Thea feel really difficult. Some insects were not even as big as sesame seeds, so what could they feel? Ms. Shiva did not have any good ideas. According to her, she could barely do it, but it was difficult for her to teach others. Her method was to find a cliff, grab a rock with one hand, and hang her whole body in the air, disregarding life and death, and abandon all distracting thoughts. Thea felt that such a crazy method was not worth listening to. She planned to live for a few more years. In addition, she remembered that there were a lot of people on social media who took selfies of themselves hanging in the air on cliffs and skyscrapers. They were all inspired by you. You are the originator of the Foreigner series. Thea decided that she still needed to use the health science method to train. The activity of the heartbeat was not suitable for her. Sitting on the ground was good enough. If one day was not enough, then 10 days. I am still young. I am not in a hurry. Moira acted quickly. Only a day after Thea talked with her, a fresh announcement was sent to the desk of major media and radio stations. She had contacted the city governments of Central City and Midway City, revealing the plan to build a high-speed railway between the cities. She also vaguely said that she had contacted some enthusiastic businessmen to donate generously, and the two governments only needed to nominally support a small part of it. Such a good thing, the two governments had no reason to oppose, and they also expressed their support for Moira's high sense of social responsibility. The implication was that as long as she could pull in dollars, they would support her campaign. It was unknown whether this was Moira's own idea or the strategy of her think tank. Anyway, the bundled election was a reflection of political wisdom. The signal to the voters was, if you choose me, I will have a job. If you don't, then goodbye. You can go find whoever you choose. Actually, it was not a new idea to combine the campaign and employment together. Many people had done it before, but there were successes and failures. The failures had their own reasons, while the winners all had one condition, and that was to be rich. Malcolm also paid attention to this matter when he was teaching Tommy. He did not expect his old lover to burst out with such enthusiasm. Although increasing the income of the poor made him unhappy, at the same time, it also provided him with an opportunity to enter Central City and Wedmi City. Generally speaking, he supported the idea because his huge underground organization had nothing to do every day and was bored out of its wits. No one knew what he had in mind at the beginning. The huge organization he had established had members from all walks of life, from business stars like Moira, politicians, police chiefs, boat runners, powder sellers, and even street vendors like Leo Miller who sold submachine guns. There were so many members that the diary was full. Conservatively speaking, there were at least a few hundred people. His organization could be said to be the most inactive organization in the multiverse. After the establishment, they did not go out to do demolition work in groups of two like Akatsuki. His reason was that they would take action when Unidac Industries' seismic device was developed. He did not know whether it was because of his big heart or because he was good at calculating. Anyway, these people did nothing but eat and wait for death to come. At present, he was in the waiting period. When he got the news from Moira, he planned to let a few of his underlings explore the way. If everything went well, they would take down 2 cities. If not, they could also solve the instability of his underlings. With Moira's strong candidacy and Malcolm's secret help, in less than 4 hours after her announcement, one of the 3 candidates had announced his withdrawal and called for supporters to fully support Ms. Quinn. Thea was watching TV at Felicity's house, watching her mother on the stage talking about the dangers of various means of transportation except for high-speed rail. Planes? There are so many hijackers crashing into buildings, and supermodels flying by from time to time. It's so dangerous, and you still dare to take it? Ships? Moira laid out facts and reasons, combining them with her family's experience, and talked about the 108 unsafe factors of sea transportation, as if Robert and Oliver had gone out to sea on a raft instead of their family's cruise ship. All in all, vote for me if you want to be safe and want to work. Several people in the audience, who were not sure if they were hired by Moira or not, immediately applauded fiercely after Moira finished her speech, as if they had heard some wonderful words. For a moment, the atmosphere was as warm as the new year. The camera also gave a close-up of a few strong men with big heads and thick necks. These people were all teary-eyed and looked so excited that they could not speak. In fact, they did not dare to speak, or did they have nothing to say? Thea looked at these people who looked like they were collecting protection money. One of them with a fierce face was particularly familiar. Was he the owner of the bar she often went to? Felicity had never liked Moira. Seeing her speaking on the stage, she slanted her eyes and curled her lips in disdain. Thea also did not understand. These two should not have any interactions, so why did they seem so incompatible? In the original plot, Felicity was already Oliver's girlfriend, and she even sneered at him at Moira's funeral, not giving her boyfriend any face at all. Perhaps it could only be attributed to the incompatibility of the two. Your antivirus suit is here. Felicity put down the phone and said lazily. Oh God. It finally arrived. It turned out that the Europeans and Americans were also full of nonsense. They said that it would be done in 3 days, but it took her 10 days. They really did not take her seriously. Thea silently recorded these people in her little black book. When she was in power, she would throw these people into the coal mines of Siberia to experience life. Although these guys were not good people, their craftsmanship was still good. In order to increase ventilation, it was changed to have an inner layer and an outer layer. The inner layer was divided into upper and lower parts, and there was a joint in the middle. The outer layer maintained the previous integral way of wearing, but it was much looser. It was not like the previous tights, where the breasts and buttocks were clearly visible at a glance. It could confuse the gender to a certain extent, which was good. The brainwave collection device was completely unrecognizable. The two girls felt that the previous round helmet was too stupid and ugly, so they changed it into the current one. It looked a bit like the headband of the elf Queen Galadriel in Lord of the Rings. At most, it was the magical version, but this was the sci-fi version. People used a mithril chain to wear 5 gems, but they used polymer to wear several mobile modules. They were all shiny and looked similar from a distance. Felicity had spent a lot of energy on these modules. She had used up 2 keyboards just to write the code, and she had lost 3 kilograms of weight. The mobile module mainly collected Thea's brainwaves and sent out instructions through the white matter in the brain cells to achieve the purpose of controlling the entire hoverboard. However, the connectivity and conductivity of human brain cells were slower than the transmission of the system, which put the pressure on Sia. This gave her a headache for 2 days. It was a real headache. She felt as if there was a piece of wood stuck in her head, and it took her 2 days to recover from it. The two tried many methods and finally came to the conclusion that the machine was indeed smarter than humans. Thea 2.0 could not handle it. They could only artificially reduce the output frequency of the system to the same level as the human brain. The downside of the down frequency was that the speed of the entire hoverboard's control was slowed down. The original design of the hoverboard only required a thought to complete various dodging and high-level movements, but now it required manual and machine adjustments. Although Felicity added a fuzzy algorithm module, the overall performance inevitably dropped by 30%. If the original Marvel's Green Goblin hoverboard was the 1.0 official version, Thea's hoverboard could only be considered the 0.7 beta version. Fortunately, she only used it as practice and did not plan to use it to practice flying. The current performance was more than enough to rob a few gangs or give to the poor.